you're watching this video, you're about to take your test, you are going to pass your test. Focus. I had a 2.8 GPA at the end of my first semester of OT school. Like, I almost failed. If I can pass this test on the first time, anybody can pass this test on the first time. I went to the little Kanye thing yesterday, and I had curls and everything in my hair, and now it's like still cute, but no curl in sight, literally. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. So today's video, before I even get into that, welcome back. I haven't made a video in a couple of months. It seems as if like I'm always making a video and then pausing, then making a video and then pausing, making a video, whatever. And I always like, oh, I'm gonna be consistent, I'm gonna start back, you know what I'm saying, da, da, da. So yeah, y'all, I'm back for real this time. So a little life update. I have passed my national board of what is it? NBCOT, National Board Certification of Occupational Therapy. Let's hope that's what it is. Anyways, I passed my NBCOT exam on the first try. I took my test on July 3rd and I found out my results on July 9th. And when this video comes out, it's probably gonna be August. So it has been a few weeks since I passed my test. A lot of times you hear so many horror stories about people not passing their test on the first time, having to take their test 2, 3, 4, 5 times before they can pass their test. And I just want everybody to know that they are capable of passing their test on the first try. It is possible to pass your test on the first try. Like, don't let anybody tell you that you can't, and I'm here to explain how to do that. Okay, first things first, what study tools did I use to study for my board exam? I used a lot of study tools. I used a bunch of study tools, just gonna be honest. When we were in school, we were required to purchase the AOTA study packet. So I already had AOTA. Also the purple book, and I'm gonna insert which purple book it is. So AOTA, the purple book, the NBCOT study packet for sure. And I did use a little bit of Pass the OT, but not too much, but I did have it, so I used a little bit of it. And the last thing, which was probably the most beneficial to me, was the missing piece OT, TMPOT, honey. And I'm gonna get into that a little bit later, but TMPOT, remember that name, okay? How long did I study? So we finally, because our program, you know, was pushed behind because of COVID, that I talked about in my last video, my fieldwork vlog, so make sure y'all watch those videos. But our fieldwork was pushed back and stuff. So when we finished our second rotation, which was the first week of April, probably that second week of April is when I started like hardcore studying, like, you know, every day. Some people feel like they don't have to start all the way over with studying, but for me and just my learning style and just, you know, my background with my program, I felt like I needed to really like start from scratch. So I started from scratch and literally retaught myself everything from that second week of April, and I was studying until the day before I took my test on July 3rd. So I did study for a few months, I'm not even gonna lie. This is kind of how my typical studying day would go. I would get the 2 PDFs, I would choose a subject or choose subjects, like maybe that day I wanted to go over neurodegenerative diseases. So I would, you know, go over the diseases. So let's say I'm doing ALS right now. I would get the TMPOT PDF, I would get the AOTA PDF, I would outline them side by side through all the neurodegenerative diseases. After that, I would watch a video on it. So that would be OT Rex or OT Miri or any OT related video that had to do with that diagnosis. And I said an OT related video because yes, you do want to know the process of the disorder, and you do want to know the process of, you know, whatever you're studying, but you do want to look at it in a clinical way from an OT perspective, because that's how it's going to show up on your test. After I watched the video, I would go on AOTA and I would look up, you know, those, that particular subject. So there's a section that has like questions that are divided into different subjects. So there's one on neurodegenerative diseases. So I would take quizzes specifically on the neurodegenerative diseases to make sure that I retain the information from what I studied that day. And that's how I studied, because I wanted to make sure that I was competent in each area. And that's what I feel like really helped me, because I knew a lot of stuff off the bat because I studied in a way that I was retaining the information versus just, you know, just studying just to study. I'm gonna go a little bit more in depth on a few study strategies that helped me. When you are doing questions, be sure to read the rationale like through and through. You need to read that rationale, maybe copy it down, maybe go in Padretti and kind of like read, you know, why the answer is the answer a little bit more. But read those rationales, go over those rationales, because 9 times out of 10, those questions are gonna pop up again. The type of question that it is gonna pop up again. Another study strategy is to take breaks during studying. Like, you are gonna have to take breaks on your test, and that's something I'm gonna talk about in the video also. I would study for like hours upon hours during, like, maybe the whole day, to be honest. From like 8 a.m. to like 6 p.m. I would study. You have to get up and take a break. Probably like 3 hours in between. Like, I would get up, you know, walk or whatever, like do something, and then get back to studying another 3 hours, and I would go work out, and then at the end of the night I would do just strictly questions. Do lots and lots and lots and lots of questions. So I explained before how when I studied, I would go over a subject, then I would watch a video on the subject, then I would do questions on the subject. After I would do that, I would do questions on like everything. So as long as I made sure that I did questions on that subject, I would then, like, at the end of the night, go over questions that were, you know, shuffled, that were just random subjects. So I would use AOTA for that. I would use the NBCOT prep for that. I would also use the Purple Book questions for that. But like I said, a lot of the questions repeat themselves. So if you're constantly going over questions on the test, you may be like, oh, I've had a question similar to that when I was studying, and you'll be able to answer correctly. NBCOT, those questions are made by the people that make the test, so you should definitely get that, because you never know like how much that can help you. And the Purple Book. Also Therapy Ed. Therapy Ed gets a bad rep because of how challenging those questions are, but Therapy Ed is a great study tool for questions because it challenges you. And even if you get the questions wrong, like, you're able to still get that rationale, and they have great rationale, so you're able to learn about different things that you probably wouldn't have known about or probably wouldn't have thought of in that way. Depending on the type of learner that you are, in the beginning, a few of my classmates got together. We all picked out individual subjects that we were gonna go over to teach everyone on Zoom. We ended up kind of like falling off and not doing it and keeping up with it because everybody was doing some different things in their lives. Like, we could not, like, you know, schedule dates together for nothing. But you don't even have to do it with a whole bunch of people. Just maybe get 2 or 3 people, you know, divide different subjects up, you know, have a lesson plan, kind of like do a little lesson plan, and come up with like a PowerPoint, come up with like a Google Doc, or like a, you know, a lesson, and teach your peers, you know, your specific subject. That helps you retain the information more, that helps you really understand what you're talking about, because once you're verbally able to discuss it with somebody, that is an easier way for you to retain the information that you're learning. All right, so let's talk about the missing piece OT. I am just really grateful for TNPOT because it like showed me a different way of reading the questions. And I think that after I did her navigating through questions courses and I did the modules, like, I really understood how to answer a question, especially when I was in between 2. Some things that really stood out to me was, like, when you are looking at a question, you need to look at the problem. Like, what is the actual problem in the question that you are trying to solve? What is the approach? Some of them have approaches and some may not have approaches. Like, are they asking for you to use a task-oriented approach? Are they asking you to use a cognitive behavioral approach, because that can determine if an answer is right or wrong, because you do different things with different approaches. Like, look at the deficit, look at the diagnosis, like some things that you will do with certain diagnoses that you won't do with others. So that is important. There are a lot of other tips that she gave us when it comes to answering the questions that I would not have even thought of until doing the modules, until doing the navigating through questions parts. And like, I just really honestly wouldn't have like been as successful on my test if I didn't invest in the Missing Piece OT. And I'm not getting any money for this at all. Like, I'm not getting any money for promoting her or promoting the program or anything like that. So this is definitely non-sponsored. I mean, if you want to sponsor me. Another thing that people do not talk about, and we didn't talk about a lot in school, clinical sims, okay? Clinical sims are just as important as those multiple choice questions, and you need to study clinical sims just as much as you are studying your multiple choice questions, okay? 9 times out of 10 from when I was studying, they are super duper random. And it seemed like when I was studying on even on my practice test, it seemed like one was easier and like one was just like way harder. And then, you know what I'm saying? So it was just like random subjects. Choose your yeses on your clinical sims before you choose your no's. Because you know in your clinical sims, when you choose yes on something that you are just very confident about, it's like, I know this is a yes. It'll confirm it, and it'll also give like a little bit more information to kind of help you confirm other choices that can also be yeses. So then after you choose your big yes, it'll help you choose another answer, and then you will know, you know, okay, like this is probably a no, this may be a no. You know what I'm saying? Like, understand when you're studying like the clinical sims and doing the actual practice test, the ones that you get right or wrong, like study those rationales, study like, you know, what assessment is what, study what is appropriate and what's not appropriate for somebody with mild dementia or somebody with severe cognitive decline, you know? Next time you know, like, oh, I know this is not the right answer because I did a clinical sim on that 2 weeks ago, and you don't do this with a patient. You know what I'm saying? It's not just about the multiple choice. The multiple choice is majority of the test, but like I said, those clinical sims, like those are questions. And the more you get wrong, the less your score is gonna be. So if you are strong in like deciphering between, you know, right or wrong, process of elimination when it comes to clinical simulations, that already puts you at an advantage. AOTA is a good source for your clinical sims because they have the different, like I said, the different subjects for the questions, they have the different subjects for the clinical simulations also. So be sure to do that. And also the purple book, those clinical sims are good. They are, to me, a little more difficult than the AOTA, which is probably good. It's good to have a combination of both. You can have you can spend all your money on these study packets. You can spend all your money on, you know, tutors and all of that stuff like that. But if you really aren't putting in the work to study, to retain the information, then you may not be successful. I'm not claiming that over you guys. Like, I think that you all are going to pass. Like, if you're watching this video, you're about to take your test, you are going to pass your test. Okay? You may or may not pass on the first time, but don't be discouraged. If you are watching this video and this is maybe like, you know, your second time or third time about to take the test, like, it's okay, like, it happens. But just know you have to investigate your own self. Like, you have to be like, okay, well, am I really studying the way that I should be? So, test day strategies. These are just as important as study tips because you want to make sure that you are going into your test with the right mindset, okay? People were like, no, you don't want to study the day before your test, da 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 da. I still did a little studying, I'm not gonna lie. I will say, I took my test on a Saturday. So I think it was that Wednesday that I took a NBCOT practice test. Actually, it wasn't even the full practice test. I just took one of the 100 question practice tests. And I got a 429 on that. And y'all, I passed my test with a 470 something. I forgot, 479, I think. when I took that practice test, during it, I was timing myself. I went to a library. My classmate told me that I should do this. My classmate that had passed before me, she said, you know, go to a library, you know, simulate an actual test day. You're able to practice that before you have to do it for real, for real. I did that. I wrote down different things that I needed to look up from the questions that I had from the NBCOT practice test, because you don't get the rationales on that practice test. Like, it doesn't show you the right or wrong answers. Like, you're gonna have to figure that out yourself. So I wrote down different things. Like, I had a question on edema management. So I, you know, studied that day. After I took my test, I studied all of the things that was on that practice test that I needed to freshen up on. The last few days, I would write down different tips, like different things to remember. Remember, da 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 da. Remember, da 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 da. You know, like wrote down everything. And I went over it. And then I started going over the NBCOT flashcards. My classmate also told me to do that. The day before, did a little bit of studying on more uncommon things. I didn't study as late. I did a bubble bath. I, you know, relaxed. I ate some of my favorite foods. Like, I, you know, talked to my family, you know, did things like that. And then that night, the study sheet I was telling you about, like, you know, remember da da da, remember this, remember that, like little bullet points. I had like 4 or 5 notebook papers full of like different little tips and tricks to remember. And I, you know, was going through them. The night before my test, I just prayed that God gave me peace that surpassed all my understanding. The anxiety that I was feeling, you know, the few days before, like the nervousness that I was feeling, like, I just asked God, like, God, please just guide me through this test. Allow me to take this test with a clear mind and a clear heart, and just, you know, give me the ability to recall the information that I need to recall in order to pass this test. And he did just that. Now, you also are given a you know, scratch piece of paper, and you're able to write down, you know, different things. Like, you're able to write down milestones, you're able to write down ACL charts, you're able to write down ranchos. Like, you're able to write down different things that you may need to recall on your test. Practice different things that you may need to write out. Like, practice that. Make sure you are taking breaks. There's a statistic out there that says that most people that get up and take a break an hour like out in their test, like every hour of their test, are more likely to pass. This is a message for everybody watching this video. And maybe like a little testimony. I tell my friends all the time, my classmates already know, I was not the all-star student when I was in OT school. I had a lot going on my first semester, and a lot of you may not know, but our program was not traditional. I started at Tuskegee. It was a 3+2 program, 3 years undergrad courses, and your last 2 years of school, which is like your senior year and then like your extra senior year, is the OT program. It's a bridge program. So technically I was still in the school that, you know, all my friends were at. You know, like, I was still involved in extracurricular activities. I held a huge position on campus my 4th year, and so I was very involved in a lot of other things when I got into school, into the OT program. So I was not focused. I had a 2.8 GPA at the end of my first semester of OT school. Like, I almost failed. Like, I almost had to take classes again. I was not motivated. I felt like I was failing most of my tests. Like, I felt like I didn't know a lot. I felt like I was not the ideal occupational therapist, even though I knew that this is something that I have always wanted to do. And don't let that discourage you. Don't let your past discourage you from thinking that you're able to pass this test on the first try. I told myself that in order for me to be successful, you have to reteach yourself everything. You have to really like dig deep into the content and try to learn and understand a lot of the stuff that you didn't understand when you were in school, and I did exactly that. Don't let your nerves overcome you. Don't let, you know, what people say or the opinions of others or what other people are saying about, oh, I didn't pass my test, I studied all da 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 and I hadn't passed my test. Like, you honestly don't know how hard they studied. You don't know the methods that they used to study. Peep the shirts. It's really crazy. One of my friends, he makes shirts, and he made this for me. Honestly, months. I was still on field work when he made me this, and before I took my test, like I had it on my dresser, and I would look at it and just know, like, I'll be able to put this shirt on. I'll be able to put this shirt on after I take my test. Like, manifesting, y'all. All right, so that's all I honestly have to say. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you have any questions, any more questions about my study methods, anything in regards to this whole process of becoming an occupational therapist, leave me up in the comments. I'll have my email address down there. Like, you know, I just really want us all to be successful. So many people help me, and I just want to be somebody who helps another person. I want to be able to pay it forward. So with that being said, definitely hit me up if you have any questions. But that is all I have for today. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Thank you guys for continuously supporting me in my small little YouTube channel, but I am claiming that it's gonna get bigger and it's gonna get better as the months go by. So again, thank you so much for supporting me and watching this video, and I hope that you all have a great day, and I will see you later.